Hi, I'm Sarah with Zen Mama Patterns, and today I'm going to show you how I added some cute little ties to the Simple Hoodie. This is for the nursing version. You can use grommets like you would for a normal hoodie drawstring. You can do a buttonhole, which I'm going to show you here. If you heard buttonhole or grommet and your sojo went, I have another option that I've added. Go ahead and fast forward to this point in the video.
So to add buttonholes to our front band of our hoodie, we need to remember that the band is going to be folded in half with the raw edges pointing up. I've marked a little notch at the center of the band, and so I'm going to have buttonholes on either side. And where you put your needle to start the buttonhole, it's going to go up, over, and down. So wherever you start it, just make sure that you have room to go up, over, and down. So if you have a fabric marker in a different color than your fabric, you can mark where you're starting. I'm just going to pick kind of a landmark on the fabric. So my first one's going to be the corner of this little blue diamond, and then we'll see about the other side. That one got a little wild, so that's why you practice a lot, but that'll work for my purposes. So now it's time to open up the buttonhole. It might be easier to do this from the back so you can see, but you'll just take your seam ripper and carefully make a little slit. Perfect. So alternatively, you can add grommets like you would for like the hoodie drawstrings, and you're just going to do the same thing for placement. So make a mark at the center of the band. You can find that by folding it in half, marking the very center, and then fold it in half lengthwise to find roughly the center point. Keep in mind that you are going to use 3/8 inch seam allowance here. So now that you have either your grommets or buttonholes sewn, we're going to attach the band to this front nursing bodice, which is step 3A in the instructions for the Simple Hoodie. You should have 2 lengths of whatever your drawstring is going to be. This is just a fold over elastic. I have 17 inch lengths cut because I just need a teeny little drawstring. You can do more if you want. So to make this easy on yourself, we don't want to thread the elastic through after the fact. So let's go ahead and thread it through now. So you've threaded through each side. If you're not sure what length you want it, I would suggest leaving these really long and then you can adjust it afterwards, but I'm pretty sure I want it this length. So I want you to baste this to the side of the band. So you'll have your tie sandwiched between these layers and baste along here. I've tried it where I just hold it in place with a clip, but it gets a little sketchy because I sometimes forget which clips or pins I'm leaving in. So have your drawstring sandwich in between and then do a base stitch here just to hold it where you want it. So I do want to note that when you baste it, try to have your elastic or drawstring, whatever, really kind of tucked into the fold at the bottom, because up here is your seam allowance that's going to get attached to the bodice. And you don't want to get the elastic caught up in that. You want it to be able to be cinched. So now that you've got your string basted into the sides, let's attach this just like we normally would as step 3A in the Simple Hoodie instructions. So the band's going to stretch to fit the bodice, and make sure you have the right side facing the bodice. Otherwise, you could end up with your drawstrings on the inside, which if that's what you're going for, great. Otherwise, make sure that the drawstring side is face down to the hoodie when you attach the band. If you like, you can top stitch this seam up. So now you're ready to move on in the instructions as normal, ready to baste the nursing underlayer. So let's start with our front bodice band piece, and let's make it unfolded. It's just going to make it a lot easier. So I'm going to just trace it and then tape it together. So I have cut out my front nursing band, and we are going to create an opening without doing grommets or buttonholes. It will require a sewing machine to hem if you choose. You don't necessarily have to because the knits don't unravel, so it's up to you. But we are going to cut this in half. So right down the middle here. And then we are going to hem each side. I used a 3/8 inch hem allowance here, and I just folded it over and top stitched. So now let's bring it back and compare to the pattern piece, which is why it's easier to have the whole unfolded piece. So we need to cut a little piece to cover this gap and have some overlap. So I want it to go maybe an inch or so. That's about 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches past. And then there. And then we need to add our seam allowance. So the piece of fabric we want to cut will be 4.5 by 3 3/4. Now you're going to hem either side or both sides. So you've hemmed both sides. Make sure you've got the stretch in the right direction. And now we're going to overlap them with the hem sides coming together. And you want to compare it to the original hemband because we want it to stay the same size. And we are going to sew along this side and this side to hold the 2 layers together. And there. I've sewn across here with a baste stitch, which I should have mentioned is a long straight stitch. I'm not back stitching at the start or finish because once this seam is sewn, you can actually pull this out. And this is just to hold it in place so none of these pieces shift because we have them where we want them. And what you've done is made basically a giant buttonhole, an opening where your tie can come through. So this is what the back looks like. And from here, you will attach your tie the same way you would, as I explained in the buttonhole. So you'll decide which way you want it attaching to the hoodie. Tie. You'll baste the end of the tie here, and then thread it through. And you can get as creative as you want with the pattern matching. I know some of you are very good at that, so that you wouldn't hardly even notice the opening there. So I've basted my ties into the folded ends here. For this one, I did the strings a little bit longer because I'm not sure yet on this, but go ahead and thread those through your opening. If it bothers you, the thought of this part gaping, let me show you what you can do before you attach it. So you can go and top stitch this closed up to just a little past halfway. You just want to leave room for your tie to sit without being caught up in this seam allowance. So you can top stitch from the bottom to about here on both sides, and that will help it not to gap open. So this is what it will look like if you go back and top stitch that down. But then you don't get gaping at the bottom. Go ahead and attach this just like I showed for the button one.